I'd like to introduce Miss Dianne Robertson Braddock, the sister of Carole Robertson, and she was 19 at the time of the bombing, and so we're going to welcome her, and she would like to give us some remarks.
Especially happy to see all of the young people. And I want to thank Chrissy for finding me. And I actually just live right over in Laurel.
Wow.
And so it always does my heart so good to know that Jack and Jill has taken this opportunity throughout the years, for 52 years now, to recognize Carole. Let's see, I don't know what, Trey, he did a great job, thank you so much. And as Trey was saying, my mother was Southeastern Regional Director, the first one, I think, when the bombing happened. And so, Jack and Jill holds a special place in our heart. And we really appreciate the fact that you take time out every year to remember Carole. And that's so important in this day and age because I think one of the themes for Jack and Jill this year is remembering never to forget. And we have so many people who don't even know about that Sunday. You know, it has kind of taken a back seat in history. So it's always good, you know, so many people ask, you know, why do we do this? And when Spike Lee did the documentary, The Four Little Girls, went and talked with my mom. And so my mother asked Spike, you know, why is it that you want to do this? And Spike said, you know, all of the other cultures remember their past. And we have to remember our past. If we don't, our children, our future will be doomed. We must remember the past. So again, I want to say thank you to the chapter, thank you to the church, the pastor and first lady for having the Jack and Jill chapter. And the pastor talked earlier about Facebook and social media and all, but it actually took a phone call with me and Chrissy this morning. I had sent her an email, which she didn't receive, so it lets us know all the time, you know, all the media is and technology sometimes, most of the time work, but sometimes it doesn't. But we resorted, I was like, I haven't heard anything. I better check. So I actually had to end up using the phone this morning. So, but anyway, thank you. There are just three things, and I want to backtrack and bring you greetings from my church, the First Baptist in North Brentwood, Maryland, Reverend Dwayne K. And we had just finished, as a matter of fact, today, they are the church involved in a missions outreach. We took this whole weekend and called it Missions Blitz. And it's so interesting that we've done this now for 4 years on this Sunday, along with the Pope's visit and all of the talk that he did about reaching out, helping others, doing the work of God. And he's really walking the talk, walking the walk. And so that's what my church is involved in this weekend. Like I said, Reverend Kay brought it to us 4 years ago, Missions Blitz. And all day yesterday, we were over at Northwestern High School doing a health fair and career fair, free to the public. And with volunteers from the church and different organizations. Today, our church will be out in the community visiting some 40 or 50 organizations to go out, shelters, and even animal shelters, shelters for men and women, the Anacostia, the environment, Anacostia watershed. So the church was spreading out all over the DMV this morning doing missions work. And so that's what 16th Street Baptist Church was all about. As it said in the video, the church was built by slaves, former slaves. And that church still stands. And because of the work and the masonry work that was put into it, the only area that was disturbed was that area you saw in the picture, in the basement of the church. And as the video says, the girls had gone down to prepare from Sunday school for the church service. And that's why they were the ones who were killed, because they were down in the lavatory right where the bomb had been placed. But that church is immediately repaired that area, and it's still growing and thriving. And it's so important to the black people in Birmingham because it was a meeting place. If many of you saw Selma, you saw how the people gathered, the marchers gathered, and they were trained. They got information on how to go out and be nonviolent. And so that's what 16th Street Baptist Church did. It was the gathering place for all the civil rights workers. And I was in my second year of college. I'm older than Carole, and of course, and three of us. So my brother was oldest. I'm the middle child. Carole was the youngest. But at my high school, students were literally climbing a 6 or 8 foot fence to leave school and go and march. And a little part of history, the principal of our high school, Mr. Johnson, his daughter, Alma Vivian, ended up being Alma Vivian Colin Powell's wife.
Wow.
And they live over in Virginia. But Mr. Johnson stood in the door of that church and denied students to leave that building. They went to the back of the building and climbed the fence and went out and marched. And I'm so happy to see so many young people, because those were the people who gathered this movement. It was thought that, you know, the parents, like my mother taught school, my father taught school, they would lose their jobs if they had gotten involved. And so, but the children, you know, they could go out and march, and that was really what forced the issues in Birmingham. So there were 3 things going on, and I'm going to sit down, Pastor. There were 3 things going on, and I will have to bring in Jack and Jill. Before the bombing, 2 years later, I was a senior in my senior year in high school. Our teen group of Jack and Jill worked on voter registration. That was our community service project. And we were charged with, we had little index cards, we had all the different areas, all the black communities, and we had names, addresses, and phone numbers of the people. We made flyers. We had to go out. We went out and passed out the flyers. And the churches, all the other community groups, the fraternities, sororities, all the clubs organized, and they said, we want black people to vote. And so we passed out flyers telling people where to go, what you had to do. We followed up with phone calls. That was my senior group of Jack and Jill. That was our community service project. And many of you may not know, the young people, when at that time, in the late 50s, 60s, you had to pay to vote. There was something called a poll tax. People had to pay. You couldn't just go sign a card. There was money involved. And I don't think it was much, but at that time, you know, people didn't make much money. So that was a hardship for people to have to pay to go and vote. Not only did you have to pay, when you got, if you saw Selma again, when you got to the court office, they would ask you questions. You had to take a test. And it was ridiculous because they would ask you questions that you couldn't answer. They didn't want us to vote. And what a lot of you will learn about in your history books is that throughout the South, where black people were slaves and worked on plantations, there were more black people in a lot of cities than there were white people. So that was one of the reasons they wanted to keep the black people from voting, because they would have been the majority and they would have had all the offices and hopefully, possibly, would have been able to affect some change for black people. Many of the cities, not just Birmingham, a lot of the cities had large black majority populations. And so that was one of the reasons they didn't want black people to vote. But they also would made these students and people start getting upset and wanting to march was because of jobs. They didn't have the opportunity to have all the jobs that you and even you teenagers, your parents have now. The South was very, very segregated. And there were all blacks were kept away from whites. And there were only certain jobs you could have. You had people with college degrees, who had black people had gone to college, and they were working in a post office, and they were working on the railroad track because there just were not a lot of professional jobs for black people who had gone to college. So people were getting upset about this. They said, why can't we work downtown and be a clerk? Why can't we work for the phone company? Why can't we be a police officer, fireman, work for the city, or work in some of the hospitals, work as clerks in the stores? So black people were getting upset about that. And so that was one of the other reasons that caused them to want to march to change things. And the other thing that I want to mention is education. I went to segregated schools. I didn't have anything to do with white people till actually probably my third year when I transferred from Clark College to Queens College in New York. Was the first time I interacted a lot with white people. So we were very segregated. Our schools were good because we had excellent black teachers. Remember, there were only a few things black people could do with a degree. So we had excellent black teachers. They could have been scientists, engineers, anything, and this if they had the opportunity. But we got all the hand-me-downs from the white schools, the books. They had already been marked in. They had the names of the other students. You know how you use your highlighter and highlight important things. That had already been done. Pages had been torn out. But those were the books that we got in the black schools to use. So education was not equal. So here were these things about safety at night. Safety during the day. One of the biggest problems that my father and my brother had was my brother wanted to go hang out with his friends. We had, theaters in the community. We had everything we needed. Self-contained black communities with black people in charge. We had everything we needed, but we were not safe. And so my father would say, no, it's not good. You all can't hang out. Somebody's going to drive up to you, Ku Klux Klan or some other white people. And it is very dangerous for you. We don't know what will happen. Now, what does that remind you of? Here, 52 years later, I want to draw these parallels for you. We know that we have had situations where black people have not been safe. Here in 2015, 2013, we know that we still have school systems that are not equal. That the black kids in a lot of these schools are not getting what they need. And here we're even, again, having to deal with voting rights. We have 23 states who have changed their voting right laws and made it more difficult